I posted about something I had seen, not just once, because I wouldn't have posted it if I had only seen it once. I saw multiple times. So I thought I'd join the conversation about how some people from other countries, immigrants, did not know that Black Americans are not immigrants. Got some Latinos in the comments saying that that's a lie, that yes, they do know that. If you do know that, which I always thought you did, but if you do, I have to wonder, why would someone ask Black Americans where they're from? Why would that even be a question? Like, I can understand assuming that I'm not Black American, that I am from Africa. But after I tell you, like, let's say you ask me, where are you from? And I tell you, I'm from America. Why would you follow it up with, no, where are you really from? Why would there be more? If you know about the history of slavery, once I tell you that I'm from America, why wouldn't you just assume that I'm a descendant of chattel slavery? That's my question. Because to continue to ask someone, either you don't know or you know and you're trying to put me down. Which one is it?
If you're talking to an African American and you have to question the fact that they don't know their heritage, African Americans have no possible way of knowing where they're from, because over hundreds of years, literally taken from our homes, and we are put together with other Africans from different countries. They can't communicate with each other, bro. We would get beaten for talking. So even trying to communicate got us beaten. At what point in time can we learn what specific region of Africa we were from?
African Americans have the right to be angry at every African nation. They are our people. Think that for multiple years there wasn't some riot or some war. I understand the white people and the Westerns, they did their thing, and that's their problem. We're not disagreeing with that. But not have a full-out war being like, you can't take our people and we're either all going to perish or you're going to perish before the debt is paid. The fact that it's just like, all right, well, it's history. Let's move forward. This is how it is. When I speak to African Americans, I'm very aware not to say things about their last name, because I know obviously their last names were taken away from them because they're trying to be bred out, their culture, languages, identity, even bodies taken away from for the benefit of the white man and Western society. They do have the right to be upset at America and the Westerners and the Africans, because they're people who should be fighting for. Africa has its culture and they might look down on that. And Americans might look down on each other. You guys need to start getting along with each other and band and put your teams together and think of it like that. I'll be honest with you. Everyone still sees you as black, African, or African American. You're still black. And on top of that, you are a team and you're from the same land.
And especially the African American experience. It's literally not duplicated anywhere on earth in history. African Americans are a completely unique phenomenon. As a people, who they are culturally, what their history is, what their experience is, isn't duplicated anywhere on earth. You don't know where you came from. You don't know what country you came from. You don't know what culture you came from. You don't know what language you came from. You don't know what your religion was before. You, like I've said before, you're more American than anyone because you don't have any other identity. Actually, your entire identity is American-based. That's not the case of anyone else. I'm Irish American, I'm German American, I'm Italian American, I'm Jewish American, I'm this or that, the other. You can say African American, but you don't know anything about Africa. You don't even know which part of Africa. Africans don't call themselves that because I know my tribe. I have my language. I have my region, my country, my whatever. Like me saying European American. I'm not European. I'm specifically Irish and German. But you can't say that. You are American. You're the original Americans. You know, everyone else is immigrants. You can't even be called immigrants. Yeah. You know, you're originally American, and your culture is as close to being the indigenous culture of America as there can be without you being the indigenous people. You know, you're the indigenous people of the entity called America, called the United States of America. Everything else came from elsewhere. Your culture is the only one that came from right there because you were cut off from everything else. You know, there's nobody else like that. There's nobody else like that in the world. There's no other culture like that in the world.
There is a misconception that exists in many African communities and is rarely talked about openly. A lot of us grew up believing that if someone has black skin, then they must be from Africa. So when we meet black Americans and ask them where they are from, they will say New York or America. Something in us resists that answer. We question it, we doubt it. Sometimes we even try to correct them. But here is the thing, this confusion didn't just come from nowhere. It comes from history, identity, and the lack of understanding on both sides. And in today's video, we are going to break that down step by step. But before we go deeper, I want you to watch this clip carefully. And as you're watching, pay attention because these reactions say a lot more than people realize. If you're already relating to this, go ahead and like this video. It pushed the conversation further. My name is Faith. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I'm glad you found this channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next conversation. Credit to all creators whose clip I used in this episode. This video is for commentary and educational purposes. It is not meant to hate or discriminate against anyone. Let's see more clips.
You can safely assume that a Black American, any Black American that you come across, is a descendant of chattel slavery and not a first, second, or third generation. Most Black Americans that are living in America are descendants of chattel slavery. Over 80% of Black people in America are Black Americans, meaning that they've been here for over, I'll give 8 generations, but it's probably more like 13 generations that most Black Americans that you come across are from America. I am, my husband is, everyone I know is. And I live in New Jersey, where New Jersey and New York, actually, you're more likely to come across a Black immigrant or a person who is first, second, or third generation in the Northeast. New York is the place where most Black immigrants live. So if you live in the Northeast, you're probably more likely to come across a person who is not a descendant of chattel slavery. But even then, they only make up 20% of the population. Black Americans vastly outnumber Black immigrants. So we don't need to have this conversation because it's more likely that a Black person that you talk to is from here.
Black Americans have created rich culture that is influential, that is powerful, so powerful and people bite it while constantly trying to diminish it. Then you have Mona Leo, who drops Sexy So Long. The song is specifically for people of that lineage, people whose roots tie back to their enslaved ancestors here. People whose grandparents and great-grandparents grew up during Jim Crow and the Great Migration and set roots here specifically. And that distinct identity created music, dialect, aesthetics, language, food, experiences that are unique to our culture specifically. She's saying Sexy So Long, she's talking about that experience, not just everything under the Pan-African umbrella. And this is so important because when people from elsewhere within the diaspora have discussions about Black Americans, one critique that constantly comes up as a gotcha is we are disconnected from our culture. We don't have a culture. We have no real identities. Black Americans built one. So not only is the statement inaccurate and ignorant, it's dishonest. Same people who say this constantly use AAVE, constantly sample and listen to our music, constantly emulate our style from fashion and aesthetic, constantly cook our food, aspire to have our swagger. It really is important. Y'all want the output while constantly denying the origin, and that's just not gonna fly. Black Americans didn't lose our culture. We made one under new conditions, under conditions a lot of people didn't have to face. One that's full of its own rich food and language and spiritual practices that has its own rich history. So yeah, all the non-blacks to the back. What's confusing about that?
Now, here is the truth a lot of people don't want to say out loud. Not every Black people shares the same identity. Yes, there is a historical connection between Africans and Black Americans, but identity is not just about skin color. It's about history, culture, and lived experience. Black Americans didn't come from Africa in a way people think. Their identity were shaped through slavery, segregation, and generation of building a completely unique culture in America. And this is where the misunderstanding begins. Many Africans see Black Americans as lost Africans, while Black Americans see themselves as a distant people with their own story. And both perspectives come from real experience. But when you don't understand that difference, it creates tension, confusion, and sometimes even division. So instead of forcing identity onto each other, maybe it's time we start listening. Because at the end of the day, respect goes both ways. You don't need to deny your roots to respect someone else's identity. And you don't need to erase someone's identity to feel connected to them. That's the real conversation we should be having. If this video made you think differently, go ahead and like, share, subscribe, because we're going to keep having this real conversation. See you in my next episode.